Come in, come in, the night air is cool, and the garden is hushed beneath the stars. Here, among the soft rustle of leaves and the glow of old lanterns, we'll weave tonight's tale. A story of whispers, dreams, and the places our hearts wander when no one is watching. The garden was still half asleep when Amelia pushed open the old retired gate, its hinges letting out a quiet sigh as if it had been waiting for her. Cool dawn air wrapped around her like a soft shawl, carrying the sweet mingling scents of earth and blooming flowers. Somewhere nearby, a bird trilled, clear and bright, answered by another, deeper note, the sound rippling gently through the hush of morning like a secret being passed along. Amelia's shoes brushed over the damp grass, dew soaking into the fabric, making her shiver slightly, but she did not mind. There was something special about being the first to walk where night had just lifted its veil. She moved slowly, her steps careful, her eyes catching the way sunlight spilled softly through the trees, breaking into scattered golden flecks that danced across leaves and petals. It felt like the whole garden was waking with her, stretching and yawning in its own silent way. The air was cool and tender, touching her skin with the kind of freshness that made her lungs feel new each time she breathed in. Amelia ran her fingers over a cluster of small white flowers, their petals slick and cold, and she smiled without meaning to. It was like touching a moment too delicate to hold for long. For days, she had been curious about this hidden place. She had seen the top of the gate from a distance, half hidden by tall hedges, but never dared to explore it. Today, though, something inside her had urged her out of bed before dawn, whispering that this was the right time. As she walked deeper, she wondered who had planted this garden, who had placed each stone and chosen each flower. There was a sense of care here, of stories tucked away beneath roots and vines. It made her chest ache in a quiet, yearning sort of way. Amelia paused near a wide stone path where moss crept between the cracks. The faint sound of running water reached her ears, soft and steady, like a lullaby. Her heart fluttered. She had not noticed it before, but now it seemed to beckon her, urging her forward. She turned her head, scanning the winding paths and tall hedges, the sound weaving in and out like a teasing melody. A thrill of excitement and a pinch of nervousness stirred in her stomach. She was alone, yet she did not feel unwelcome. Rather, she felt as though someone unseen was guiding her steps. She closed her eyes for a moment and took a deep breath, letting the sense of wild jasmine and damp soil fill her senses. The world outside this garden felt far away now, all the noise and worries replaced by stillness and birdsong. She thought of her grandmother's words, how mornings carried magic for those who rose early to greet them. Perhaps this was what she had meant. Amelia opened her eyes and continued walking, the sunlight now warming the tops of her shoulders. At the center of the path stood a cluster of tall roses, their blossoms heavy with dew, drops sliding lazily down to fall onto the stones below. She crouched, brushing one with her fingertip. The chill of it startled her, but also grounded her. This was real. She was here, part of this secret world. As she rose again, she noticed a faint shimmer in the distance. Just beyond the curve of the path, her breath caught, a soft wonder blooming inside her. She could not see clearly what lay ahead, but she felt certain it was waiting for her to find it. With the garden now fully awake around her, Amelia walked on, her heart calm but curious. The wrought iron gate closed gently behind her, a quiet click sounding like a promise. Somewhere ahead, hidden beyond the next turn, the source of the water's song awaited her, and Amelia was ready to listen. The soft trickle of water reached Amelia before she saw it, like a secret being shared in hushed voices. It mingled with the rustle of leaves and the distant calls of morning birds, guiding her through the winding path. Her feet brushed over the damp moss as she moved closer, heart beating a little faster. The air seemed different here, cooler and sweeter, carrying a faint scent of lilies and something older, something she could not quite name. As she rounded a curve, the fountain came into view, small and unassuming, nestled between two flowering shrubs, heavy with pale pink blossoms. Its stone surface was worn smooth with age, and tiny droplets sparkled like scattered gems in the growing sunlight. Water bubbled gently from its center, spilling into a shallow pool below. The sound was soft and rhythmic, like breathing. Amelia slowed her steps, almost afraid to disturb the peace, yet drawn closer, as if the fountain itself was inviting her to listen. She crouched near the edge, her knees sinking into the damp earth. The closer she leaned, the clearer the sound became. And then, to her astonishment, it was no longer just the soft babble of water. There were words, faint and delicate, weaving through the bubbling stream. Amelia held her breath, tilting her head, her pulse quickening. The voice was not quite human, yet not entirely unfamiliar either. It spoke in a language she could not understand, and yet somehow, deep inside, she felt its meaning. Her fingers trembled slightly as she reached toward the water. It was warmer than she expected, a gentle heat that seemed to pulse softly beneath her touch. Like a living heartbeat, she let her hand rest there, feeling the ripples spread outward as though the fountain itself had sighed. In that moment, a wave of calm washed over her, chasing away the restless thoughts she had brought with her from the outside world. Stories seemed to rise from the water, not in clear pictures, but in flashes and feelings. She sensed laughter, the planting of seeds, the quiet patience of growing things. There were memories of care and of change, of seasons turning again and again. Amelia's chest tightened, she whispered, barely daring to give voice to her wonder. Is this you, garden? The water's rhythm shifted, the bubbling deepening for a moment, as if answering her mind filled with questions. Who had built this fountain? Who had first spoken to it? And why did it seem to know her? Perhaps it was only her imagination, but she could not shake the feeling that the garden had been waiting for her, watching quietly as she wandered closer. The thought both comforted and unsettled her. The whispering grew softer, fading into a gentle hum. Amelia drew her hand back reluctantly, droplets clinging to her fingertips like tiny jewels. She sat back on her heels, her heart both calm and curious. The fountain seemed almost to glow in the dappled sunlight. She brushed a strand of hair from her face and took a deep breath. Somewhere deeper in the garden, a breeze stirred, carrying with it the faint creak of branches and the distant flicker of lantern light. Amelia rose slowly, her legs stiff from crouching, and gave the fountain one last, grateful look. The whispers were gone now, but their echo lingered inside her, guiding her onward with a quiet resolve. She turned toward the sound of rustling leaves, ready to follow where the garden led next. A gentle rustling came from behind a thick hedge, a sound so soft Amelia almost thought she imagined it. She paused mid-step, tilting her head. The breeze stirred again, carrying with it the faint perfume of wildflowers and something sweeter, almost like honey warmed by sunlight. Her fingertips brushed against the hedge as she moved closer, the leaves cool and slightly damp beneath her hand. Then, to her surprise, a narrow opening slowly revealed itself. As though the branches were pulling back just for her, Amelia's breath caught. She was certain this gap hadn't been there before. She crouched slightly, peering through, and saw a path she hadn't noticed when she first entered the garden. It was narrow and winding, curving gently out of sight. Along its edges bloomed flowers unlike any she had ever seen. Their petals glowed softly, like tiny lanterns lit from within above them. Real lanterns hung low from twisted wooden poles, their golden light flickering and swaying as if greeting her. For a moment, Amelia stood perfectly still, her heart fluttering like a bird in her chest. The place felt both welcoming and mysterious, as though it had been waiting for her to discover it. She whispered to herself, "Did you hide this from me on purpose?" The hedge rustled again, almost in reply. A smile tugged at her lips, despite her nervousness. She stepped through the opening, careful not to disturb the glowing flowers, and the hedge closed softly behind her with a whisper of leaves. The air inside this hidden path was different, warmer and thick, with a faint, sweet fragrance that wrapped around her like a comforting shawl. Each step seemed to hush the world a little more, until all she could hear was the quiet rhythm of her own breathing and the distant hum of the garden. The light from the lanterns painted golden patterns on the path, shifting as they swayed gently overhead. Amelia reached out to touch one, her fingers grazing the smooth wood. The glow pulsed faintly under her fingertips before returning to its steady warmth. She walked slowly, her shoes brushing against soft moss and fallen petals. There was a strange pull to this path, as if it knew exactly where she was meant to go. The flowers seemed to lean slightly toward her as she passed, their pale light glowing brighter for a heartbeat. Amelia felt a rush of tenderness, as though these blooms were alive in some small, quiet way. Perhaps they were. In this magical place, it seemed possible. Her thoughts wandered as she followed the winding turns. She remembered her grandmother's old stories of secret passages and enchanted woods, how she would always say that special paths reveal themselves only to those who are ready to walk them. Amelia wondered what it meant that the garden had chosen to show her this. Maybe there was something it wanted her to find, something hidden deep inside its heart. A small thrill of anticipation stirred in her chest. The lantern light grew softer as she walked, casting longer shadows that danced gently across the ground in the distance. She thought she heard the faintest sound of water again, mingled with a low hum like a lullaby sung by the earth itself. Amelia's steps quickened, her curiosity growing with every turn. The path curved one final time, disappearing into a cluster of tall, silver-leafed trees. She paused at the edge, taking one last deep breath of the sweet, warm air. The glowing flowers swayed as if nodding her onward, and Amelia smiled, her heart light and full of wonder. With a quiet resolve, she stepped forward, ready to discover what awaited beyond the silver trees. As the lanterns behind her faded into the distance, their golden glow lingered like a promise in the cool evening air. The silver trees parted slowly as Amelia stepped through, their leaves brushing softly against her shoulders like a quiet welcome. Beyond them, a gentle humming filled the air, low and soothing, almost like a song meant only for the plants. Amelia's eyes widened when she saw an elderly figure kneeling among a bed of iridescent blooms. Each flower shimmered with colors that shifted like morning light on water. The person's hands moved carefully and lovingly, tending the plants with a kind of reverence that made Amelia pause and hold her breath. The figure looked up, and Amelia saw a face lined with both age and kindness, eyes bright and knowing. A small, serene smile spread across their face as they greeted her. "You have found your way here." The gardener's voice was warm and calm, like the steady crackle of a hearth fire. Amelia stepped closer, her feet sinking into the soft moss. She felt oddly safe in their presence, as if this meeting had been planned long before she had even entered the garden. The gardener reached for a nearby flower, its petals glowing faintly pink, and cradled it. "These blooms," they said softly, "do not grow by sunlight alone." Amelia leaned forward, listening intently. The air between them smelled sweet and earthy, the kind of scent that made her think of spring mornings and freshly tilled soil. They respond to care, to patience, to the quiet moments when someone takes time to truly see them. The gardener's words felt like a secret being passed gently into her hands. Amelia knelt beside them, her skirts brushing the damp ground. "You mean," she said, her voice barely above a whisper, "they can feel when someone loves them?" The gardener's eyes twinkled as they nodded. "Just as people can," they replied. "The garden lives and breathes, but it needs balance. Too much attention, and it grows restless. Too little, and it withers. It is the space between, the harmony, that lets it thrive." A soft wind stirred the blossoms, making them shimmer even brighter. Amelia's heart swelled with a feeling she couldn't quite name. It was part wonder, part tenderness, and part a quiet ache. As if these words touched something deep within her, she thought of her own life, how she had often rushed or worried, how rarely she paused to simply be. "I think," she said slowly, "maybe I've been moving too fast, not really paying attention." The gardener placed a gentle hand over hers, their touch warm and steady. "Then slow down, child," they said kindly. "The garden has been here for many years, and it will wait for you to learn. Growth is never hurried." Amelia breathed deeply, letting the lesson settle inside her like rain sinking into thirsty soil. As they worked side by side, the gardener showed her how each plant had its own needs. Some required a soft touch, others thrived with more space. Amelia marveled at how alive everything seemed under their care. The colors of the blooms deepened as they were tended, their petals almost humming with quiet joy. When the work was done, the gardener rose with graceful ease, their shadow long in the fading light. "Go now," they said, their voice soft but certain. "There is more for you to discover." Amelia stood slowly, reluctant to leave this safe corner of the garden. She gave the gardener a grateful nod, then turned toward the path ahead as she walked away. The hum of the blossoms lingered behind her, blending with the cool evening breeze. The lanterns ahead began to flicker to life, their golden glow leading her deeper into the mystery, and Amelia followed, her heart steady and warm, ready for whatever the garden wished to reveal next. The air grew strangely still as Amelia stepped into a grove of tall, ancient trees, their trunks wide and gnarled, their branches arching high above to form a natural ceiling. A faint hum reached her ears, so soft she first thought it was the wind, but the leaves were barely moving. She stopped walking, holding her breath, and listened more carefully. There it was again, a low, steady note that seemed to come from deep within the wood itself. Like the slow exhale of the earth, curiosity tugged at her, and she moved closer to the nearest tree, her hand brushing its rough bark. The hum deepened. A warm vibration traveled up her arm and into her chest, making her heart feel both heavy and comforted at once. Amelia gasped softly. The sound was alive, and it was speaking in a language beyond words. As she turned her head, she noticed that each tree carried its own tone, one high and delicate, another rich and deep, and together they formed a soft, strange harmony. She began to walk slowly between them, her footsteps muffled by the thick carpet of moss beneath her feet. With every step, the music shifted, as if the trees were acknowledging her presence, the hums weaving together into something fuller, warmer, more complete. Amelia placed both hands against a trunk and closed her eyes. Her breathing slowed until she could feel the rhythm of her heartbeat blending with the song of the grove. "This is incredible," she whispered, though no one was there to hear. A small smile touched her lips as a calm, unlike anything she had ever felt, settled over her. The world beyond this garden, with all its noise and hurry, felt impossibly far away. She thought of the gardener's words about balance and care, and wondered if perhaps this was the garden's way of listening back, a place where not only plants, but even the trees themselves could respond to quiet hearts. As she moved deeper, she noticed how the tones changed with her emotions. When she felt a burst of wonder, the sound swelled in brightness. When a hint of fear pricked at her, the notes softened, soothing her. It was as if the grove could sense her thoughts and adjust its song to comfort her. Tears pricked Amelia's eyes, not from sadness, but from a deep sense of connection. She felt seen here, understood in a way words could never capture. The sense around her deepened as she walked. Rich earth mingled with the faint sweetness of hidden blossoms. The air was cool, but carried a quiet warmth beneath its surface. Like the safe weight of a favorite blanket, leaves rustled above her in time with the hums, creating a symphony of sound and movement. Amelia tilted her head back, watching specks of light dance between the branches. They glittered like tiny stars caught in the tree's embrace. Finally, she stopped in the very heart of the grove. Closing her eyes fully, the trees' voices surrounded her now, blending into one harmonious song. Her chest rose and fell in time with their rhythm, and for a long moment, there was no separation between herself and the garden. She was simply part of its living, breathing whole. When she opened her eyes again, everything seemed sharper and more alive. The colors deeper, the air richer, the song quieter but still lingering, like an echo in her bones. Amelia exhaled slowly, peace settling into her like soft rain as she turned toward the path ahead. The trees gave one final gentle hum, a promise that they would remember her, and she walked on, carrying their song in her heart. A cool breeze slipped through the grove, carrying with it a faint, sweet scent that Amelia had not noticed before. It was delicate, like jasmine touched by moonlight, and it seemed to beckon her forward. She followed it slowly, brushing past trailing vines and soft leaves, until she came upon a wall of thick ivy, its glossy green tendrils climbing high and tangled together, so tightly that it seemed impenetrable. Yet, as Amelia stepped closer, the vines quivered as though they sensed her presence. Then, with a quiet rustle, they parted just enough to reveal a narrow doorway of old glass framed in wood. Amelia's heart thudded with excitement and a hint of unease. She reached out and traced the edge of the glass with her fingertips. It felt cool and smooth beneath her skin, like a secret long kept, taking a steadying breath. She pressed on the door. It opened with a soft creak, letting out a rush of warm, fragrant air that wrapped around her like a welcoming embrace. Amelia stepped inside, her eyes widening at the sight before her. The small greenhouse glimmered like a treasure chest, lit from within by a soft, otherworldly glow. Rows of rare plants filled the space, their leaves and petals shimmering in hues she had never seen before. Deep violets, silver blues, and golds that seemed to shift when she tilted her head. The air was rich with the mingled scents of jasmine, fresh soil, and something sweet and wild that she couldn't name. Amelia's breath caught. For a moment, she felt as though she had stepped into another world entirely. She walked slowly between the narrow rows, careful not to disturb the fragile beauty around her. As she passed, the plants seemed to move ever so slightly, their leaves tilting toward her like curious faces. Amelia reached out, hesitant, and brushed a fingertip over one silken petal. To her astonishment, the plant quivered under her touch, releasing a soft, glowing mist that shimmered briefly in the air before fading. "It's like they know me," she whispered to herself, her voice barely carrying over the quiet hum of the greenhouse. Her chest swelled with a mix of wonder and disbelief. She touched another plant, and this one swayed gently, its leaves curling inward and then opening wide as if in greeting. Amelia laughed softly, the sound bubbling up like a child's delight. "Hello there," she said, feeling slightly foolish but also strangely connected. As she explored further, her thoughts turned inward. She remembered moments when she had felt alone or misunderstood, times when she longed for someone to see her as she truly was. And now, here were these living, breathing wonders responding to her presence. It was as if the garden itself had been watching and waiting, offering her this secret space as a gift, a place where she was recognized and welcomed. She paused in the very center of the room, closing her eyes and breathing deeply. The warm air was heavy with the perfume of blossoms, wrapping around her like a protective blanket. For the first time in what felt like ages, Amelia felt completely at peace. No expectations, no hurry, just the soft thrum of life surrounding her. She whispered a quiet thank you, unsure if the words were meant for the plants, the garden, or something greater. When she finally opened her eyes, the glow of the greenhouse seemed even softer, as though it was dimming in preparation for her to leave. Amelia gave one last tender look at the swaying blooms, then turned and slipped back through the ivy, the vines closing gently behind her. Outside, lanterns flickering like distant stars, leading her toward whatever wonders awaited next. The soft crunch of gravel under Amelia's shoes slowed as she stepped onto a mossy path. The air grew cooler here, laced with the clean, earthy scent of water and stone. Ahead, through a curtain of drooping willow branches, a gentle shimmer caught her eye. Amelia pushed the branches aside and gasped quietly. Before her lay a pond so clear it seemed like a piece of polished glass, the surface perfectly still, reflecting the sky and trees with breathtaking precision. She knelt at the edge, the damp earth cool beneath her fingertips. Leaning forward, Amelia peered into the water and saw not only her own face, but the entire garden gathered around her in reflection. The golden light of lanterns danced across the surface, weaving her image and the gardens into one. For a moment, she could not tell where she ended and the garden began. Her breath caught in her throat, and she whispered, almost afraid to disturb the spell, "It's like we're part of each other." The pond gave off a faint, rhythmic ripple, as if responding to her words. Amelia dipped her hand into the cool water. It slid over her skin like silk, sending a soothing tingle up her arm. She trailed her fingers gently through it, watching the perfect reflection shiver and reform. A soft breeze stirred the willows, carrying the sweet fragrance of nearby blooms mixed with the fresh, clean scent of water. As she sat back, Amelia felt a wave of calm wash over her. She closed her eyes and listened. The garden seemed to breathe around her, the soft rustle of leaves like a lullaby. Somewhere, a bird trilled a gentle note, the sound mingling with the quiet hum of life. In that stillness, her thoughts began to settle, like fallen leaves sinking to the bottom of a stream. She thought about the path that had led her here, the twists and turns of her days, the worries she carried, and the questions that seemed to have no answers. Just as the garden thrived through stillness and care, she began to wonder if her own growth needed the same. Maybe she didn't always need to push so hard. Maybe, like the pond, she could reflect and simply be. Amelia opened her eyes, gazing at her reflection once more. This time, she saw more than a girl sitting beside a pond. She saw strength hidden beneath gentleness, and the hint of courage shining through uncertainty. The garden's mirrored image seemed to whisper that she was part of something vast and beautiful, a living rhythm of change and renewal. Her chest filled with warmth, and for the first time in a long while, she felt truly grounded. "I think I understand now," she murmured, a small, serene smile touching her lips. She leaned forward, letting her fingertips brush the surface one last time, as if sealing a quiet promise with the water. The sun dipped lower, painting the pond in shades of rose and gold. Fireflies began to blink softly among the reeds, their tiny lights like drifting stars. Amelia rose slowly, her heart light and steady, and followed the glowing path back through the willows, the reflection of the pond lingering in her mind like a gentle dream, guiding her toward the mysteries yet to come. The garden shifted as the day began to close, a soft hush falling over the air. Amelia strolled slowly along a winding path, her steps sinking into the warm earth. The sky was brushed in shades of amber and rose, the kind of colors that made the world feel tender and fleeting. A cool breeze whispered through the leaves, carrying the faint, sweet scent of blooming flowers mixed with the earthy smell of evening dew. She paused beneath an arch of ivy, watching as the last golden rays slid between the branches. Shadows stretched long and thin across the paths, swaying gently as if the garden itself was breathing, one by one. Lanterns nestled among the trees flickered to life, their soft, golden glow spreading like tiny stars falling to the earth. Amelia gasped quietly, not with fear but with wonder, for no hand lit them. They seemed to wake on their own, responding to the coming night. Curious, she reached out to the nearest lantern. The glass was cool beneath her fingertips. The flame inside burned steady and warm, yet it gave off no heat, only a comforting light that pooled at her feet. She walked forward slowly, each step revealing another lantern ahead, the path glimmering like a river of light. Amelia felt as if she were stepping into a dream as she wandered deeper into the garden. She noticed how different it felt under the twilight glow. The same flowers she had seen earlier now shimmered faintly, their petals soft and velvety to the touch. Fireflies drifted lazily between them, adding their own gentle sparkle to the scene. A distant chorus of crickets rose and fell in rhythm, blending with the quiet rustle of leaves. It felt like the whole garden was alive, whispering secrets to the night. Amelia's heart swelled with a strange, tender ache. She thought of how fleeting moments could be, how the day always slipped into night without anyone noticing the exact moment it changed. Just like how people grew, little by little, without seeing it happen. She whispered softly to herself, "Maybe some magic is meant to be quiet, only noticed when we slow down enough to feel it." The words felt true, as if the garden itself had taught her to say them. She breathed deeply, letting the cool evening air fill her lungs. The soft glow of the lanterns wrapped around her like a warm blanket. For the first time in a long while, Amelia felt a sense of timelessness, as if the outside world had melted away and only this moment remained. She walked without hurry, letting her fingertips brush over flower petals and smooth stones, savoring every detail. The last sliver of sunlight slipped behind the horizon, and the entire garden seemed to sigh. Shadows deepened while the lanterns shone brighter, their reflections dancing on the leaves and petals. Amelia stopped at a small clearing where the glow pooled brightest. Standing still, she closed her eyes, listening to the night settle into its rhythm. When she opened them again, the garden looked like a place spun from dreams, a world caught between night and day, with magic stitched into every shadow and light. Amelia smiled softly, her heart calm and steady. Then she stepped forward, ready to see where the glowing path would lead her next, carrying the quiet wonder of twilight within her. The night air was cool and fragrant, carrying the soft scent of jasmine and earth. Amelia wandered beneath the ancient trees, their trunks thick and gnarled, their roots weaving through the ground like silent rivers. A hush seemed to settle over the garden, as if it were holding its breath, waiting somewhere ahead. A faint glow pulsed gently, barely visible through the tangled roots. It flickered like a hidden star trapped beneath the soil. Heart quickening, Amelia knelt down, brushing away a few fallen leaves. There, nestled between the roots, was a small wooden box, its surface carved with delicate patterns of vines and flowers. The box was warm to the touch, as if it had been cradled by the earth itself. The glow seeped from the cracks around its lid, painting Amelia's fingertips in soft gold. With careful hands, she lifted the lid. A quiet gasp escaped her lips. Inside lay a single seed, no larger than a pearl, yet it pulsed faintly. Glowing with a living light, it seemed to breathe, to thrum with a heartbeat of its own. Amelia held it in her palm, the warmth spreading up her arm, filling her with a sense of calm and wonder. Her thoughts tumbled like falling petals. She whispered to herself, "It's alive." A part of her wanted to keep it close, to protect it, but another part felt a small, trembling fear. What if she wasn't ready for something so rare and fragile? The seed felt like a promise, and promises carried weight. She closed her fingers around it, feeling it pulse gently against her skin. A soft rustle stirred behind her. Amelia turned to see the gardener standing beneath the branches, their face serene, illuminated by the golden light of the seed. The gardener's voice was calm and deep, carrying a warmth that wrapped around her like a shawl. "This is the garden's gift," they said, kneeling beside her. "It embodies patience, care, and the unbroken cycle of life." Amelia looked at the seed again, questions bubbling in her chest. "Why me?" she asked softly. "Why give this to me?" The gardener smiled, their eyes kind and knowing. "Because you listened," they said. "You walked these paths with open hands and an open heart. The garden sees you as a friend, and friends are trusted with its deepest secrets." As they spoke, the lantern light shimmered through the leaves, casting gentle patterns on the ground. Amelia felt a lump rise in her throat. She thought of her own life, the choices she had made, and the quiet ways she had grown. Perhaps, she realized, she was more like the garden than she had ever known. The gardener placed their hand over hers, closing her fingers firmly around the seed. "Nurture it," they murmured, "and it will grow within you. Just as it grows here, it will teach you, if you are patient and kind." Amelia nodded slowly, the weight of the moment sinking into her heart like rain into thirsty soil. Together they stood, the box now empty at the base of the old tree. Amelia tucked the seed close to her chest, feeling its gentle rhythm align with her own heartbeat. As she looked around, the entire garden seemed to glow brighter, as though it too was welcoming this new bond. When Amelia finally walked away, she glanced back once more. The ancient tree stood silent and strong, the roots cradling the empty box like a memory. She breathed deeply, her spirit steady, knowing the true journey was only beginning. And under the starkest sky, the seed's glow lit her path home. The sky deepened into a velvety blue, stars slowly awakening like tiny lanterns scattered across the heavens. The garden was wrapped in a soft hush, a lullaby of night creatures and whispering leaves. Amelia stood beneath the arch of the ancient gate, her breath slow and steady as she gazed at the paths behind her, glowing faintly beneath the moonlight. The air was cool now, carrying the faint sweetness of jasmine and earth, and the gentle hum of the garden seemed to echo in her chest. She looked down at her hands, cradling the small seed, its glow steady and warm, a promise she could feel rather than see. Earlier, it had pulsed with an almost frantic rhythm, but now it seemed calm, at peace, as though it trusted her. Amelia brushed her thumb over its smooth surface, her heart swelling with gratitude. She knew the garden had given her something precious, not just a gift to carry, but a lesson to live by. Behind her, the soft, golden lanterns flickered in the distance. A last farewell. She turned to take in every detail one final time. The curling vines along the stone walls, the winding paths lined with flowers that glimmered under moonlight, the great trees standing tall and wise, their leaves rustling gently as if whispering secrets she could no longer hear. Each sight etched itself into her memory, warm and vivid. Amelia hesitated, her feet reluctant to leave. A part of her wanted to stay, to wander these paths forever, but she remembered the gardener's words. "The garden will always be with you," they had said with a knowing smile, not in stones or petals. But here, their hand had rested lightly over her heart at that thought. Amelia pressed the seed closer to her chest and took a deep breath. Slowly, she stepped through the gate, the wrought iron cool beneath her fingertips as it swung open with a soft creak. The air on the other side felt different, lighter, yet somehow emptier. She turned back just as the gate began to close on its own. No sound, no rush, only a gentle, graceful movement when it latched shut. The glow of the garden seemed to fade like a dream at dawn. Her steps carried her down the moonlit path beyond the walls, though she could no longer see the garden. Its hum remained in her heart, like a quiet song meant only for her. Amelia thought of everything she had seen: the whispering fountain, the glowing lanterns, the old tree with its hidden box. She thought of how she had arrived uncertain and searching, and now she walked away grounded, carrying not just the seed, but the peace it represented. The night air wrapped around her like a soft blanket, cool and soothing. Crickets sang gently in the grass, and the stars above seemed to shimmer a little brighter. Amelia whispered softly, "Thank you," not sure if she was speaking to the garden, the gardener, or to something greater. Perhaps all three. Her words drifted into the quiet, carried away by the breeze. As she reached the bend in the path, she paused to glance back one last time. There was nothing but shadows and starlight, yet she smiled, knowing that just because she could no longer see the magic didn't mean it had vanished. With the seed resting warmly in her palm and her heart steady, Amelia continued forward, the quiet hum of the garden guiding her steps into the night.